Welcome in, everyone, to my 2021 New York Giants Mock Draft 1.0, aka the way too early edition. And I call it that way too early edition because that's exactly what it is. It is way too early to be making a mock draft about this, but you guys been asking for a couple weeks now. I was like, alright, sure, why not? Put one out, see what you guys think. So a couple disclaimers before we actually get into the mock draft. 90% this is gonna be an absolute shot in the dark crapshoot because we know nothing yet, right? All we know is the prospects. All we can do is go and look at all of the hundreds of prospects out there and try to evaluate them with our own eyes, but we're not sure of each team's needs yet. It's too early to figure that out. We're not sure even of the complete draft order yet to figure that out. These are the reasons I call it the way too early edition, but I still think this is going to be pretty fun. I still think at the very least that the positions that I try to attack here are going to be what the New York Giants try to attack, and before you guys roast me in the comments, it's going to happen anyway because of the factors that I mentioned. It's going to be kind of, jumbled, in the later rounds of the draft. Nobody's sure who's going to go where yet. That's just the nature of doing these mock drafts. And also, these are the positions that I legitimately think that the Giants need to attack. And if they do attack it, these are the players I think that fit best for the team and for that position. So, with all that being said, let's get into it. With the 11th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Football Giants select Devontae Smith, wide receiver, Alabama. Now, for those of you that have been watching my channel for a while, there should be absolutely no surprise. I am a wide receiver in the first round guy for this particular draft right here. The Giants all year, all the 2020 season, one of their biggest, if not their biggest need and biggest glares hole on the roster was that they were missing a playmaker on the offensive side of the football. They were missing a true number one wide receiver on the offensive side of the football. Luckily for them, at the position that they're picking, any one of these top three receivers, in my opinion, could drop and will be available at number 11. It's very, very rare that, I don't even know actually if it's happened that three wide receivers go in the top 10 picks of the NFL draft. It's very, very rare that two of them go. So I do think at least one of them is going to be available, whether it's Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, or Jalen Waddle. And well, let's get into Devontae Smith a little bit. What kind of number one wide receiver do we need? What kind are we missing from this team? An outside explosive threat. And standing at 6'1", 175 pounds, that's exactly what Devontae Smith is. He was the best college football wide receiver this past year at not only creating space, because many wide receivers can create space, but he was one of the few that managed to keep space and keep a good cushion every time he's out there on the field. Smith was, of course, given the huge task and immense pressure of being Alabama's number one after Jalen Waddle went down, and to say that he lived up to it and accomplished that goal would be a severe understatement. The Heisman winning wide receiver finished his year with 117 receptions, 1,856 yards, and 23 touchdowns, closing out what some are calling the best wide receiver season in college football history. Now, if it would all stats, I would just end it right there, and I could do a whole video on Devontae Smith in terms of his technique as to why I like him so much, but I'm going to try to keep it to a couple bullet points that I jotted down here. His route running ability is also one of the best in college football. And I mean, even if I were to say this about Jalen Waddle or Jamar Chase, there's a reason these three particular receivers are head and shoulders above the rest right now. It's kind of interchangeable. Smith has some of the best route running abilities. I've seen some of the best fake outs from him in the entirety of college football. Whenever he's going out there and uses some sort of double move, he's great at selling his upper body while keeping his lower body and feet positioned so he still has that explosiveness to go to where he actually intends to run to. He has some of the best hands in the entirety of the sport that I've ever seen, which allows him, despite his small frame, to make great contested catches and great 50-50 balls come down with him every single time. And you guys know my only problem, I literally have just one nagging thing that I don't like about Smith, and it's his size. I think he's a little bit undersized. I would want him to gain a little bit more muscle as he enters the NFL. Hopefully it doesn't affect too much of his speed and agility, but he does play bigger than his frame intends, which is why he was used all over the field for Alabama this year. Now, at the pro level, I do think he'll be best suited at the Z receiver, but Alabama had him at the X as well, which, you know, for an outside receiver, you'd want them to be a bit bigger than Smith is to try and get that bump and run type of routes. But he has shown you put him anywhere out there and he'll get the job done. He will be the Giants' #1 receiver if taken. With the 42nd pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Derion Kendrick, cornerback, Clemson. Now this is where I could already see some disagreements occurring right now in the comments section about taking a corner in the second round. It's kind of a hot topic right now. I think the two most popular additions to the team around this round would be either a corner or a linebacker. And honestly, it comes down to preference and positional value to each person. I personally think that the Giants need a second cornerback more than they need a second linebacker. We've been burned more by second and third wide receivers this year than we have by, say, tight ends. All year, consistently throughout the entire year, the second cornerback spot has been, you know, kind of a nagging situation. I wouldn't go as far as to call it a terrible problem because, you know, at some points during the season, guys like Yadam seem to improve a little bit. Towards the end of the season, we had Julian Love back there at the second cornerback position who didn't look too bad. But I would much prefer to bring in somebody from the draft, you know, around this higher round pick that could definitely just slide in and do their job. And that's where 6'1", 190 pounds, Derion Kendrick comes in. Kendrick is a very interesting prospect, man. He didn't even play at the cornerback spot until spring of 2019, and then coming into this year, he was starting at cornerback for Clemson. I do find that a bit impressive, but I must put out there, he's still learning the position. Kendrick is new to the position, and considering the short time he spent there, I think he has potential to be a good outside corner in the NFL. He certainly has the measurables for it. And while there's room for improvement, he's shown great ball skills and zone coverage ability in 2020. And I really do think that comes from him being a former receiver, especially with the ball skills. He's great with tracking the football in the air. He's great with going up at the point of attack. He's actually been a pretty physical corner in my opinion. He's caused a couple of fumbles because of how he attacks the ball, and that plays into his zone coverage skills because of his ability to feel out a couple of routes and, you know, his ability to read the quarterback a little bit. Like I said, he's still developing, and that's clearly shown in his man coverage skills. When lined up one-on-one, he's not the greatest against #1 guys. Like, he definitely struggled against LSU receivers. He struggled against Olave of Ohio State. But the thing is, once again, you consider how long he's been in that position and how much he's improved from 2019 to 2020, I think he can get to a point where he could get to guard these guys. And even then, we're not going to be asking him to line up against #1 guys. We're going to be asking him to come in here and take care of that #2 receiver spot, which I think he can more than do. And with Patrick Graham, when it comes to developing players and getting the most out of them, we saw what he did with 6th and 7th round talents. This is a guy in the second right here that definitely has room to develop. I think Graham could get the most out of him. A quick little note on the cornerback class here in 2021. This is the position that I've seen switched up the most. It's really a guessing game right now as of who's going to end up in the second round. But like guys like Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes, J.C. Horn, Israel also out of South Carolina there. They're all being like mocked for in the late first, early second. We'll see who ends up there. With the 76th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Cameron McGrone, linebacker, Michigan. And here we are, we finally get that second middle linebacker spot filled up with a player that I legitimately think has all the tools to become a 3-down linebacker in the NFL. Standing at 6'1", 236 pounds, he had a hot start off to his career at Michigan last year, finishing up that season with 66 total tackles, 4 sacks, and a forced fumble. Kind of then cooled down his second year here, 2020, with just 26 tackles, half a sack, and no forced fumbles. But I will say, keep in mind, of course, COVID season, all of that. Michigan played less games this year than they did last year. Keep all of that in mind. In fact, McGrone himself was a little bit, nicked up this year at one point, playing with a cast on his hand, just to show you how tough the guy is. His strength right now definitely lies in his tackling ability and wrap-up ability, in my opinion. He has great speed for the position and at times can show really good play recognition to go and close in on a ball carrier or a receiver. And when I talk about speed, I'm not just talking about, the vertical quickness, just talking about going from like 0 to 60 or something, keeping up with, tight ends and whatnot, which I do think he does an alright job of. He can do better, and I think he has the potential to do better, but he does an okay job of keeping up with tight ends. I'm also referring to side-to-side range, mobility, and lateral speed as well. He's very smooth and fluid in open space, man. Now, he hasn't had too many coverage reps at the college level. He's had some, and he's looked okay in them, but not enough for you to outright say he's a good coverage linebacker. He's been mostly used in, heavy blitz packages, which he's pretty good at with attacking the quarterback, which kind of maybe lends to some versatility. Maybe Graham even bounces him to the outside a little bit as a pass rusher, but he has the tools to develop as a coverage linebacker. Once again, going back to his agility and quickness, and I do think he could develop into that. I'd rather have somebody like him on the field over there instead of, say, David Mayo or Devontae Downs, guys who are strictly just, tackling and run defensive linebackers. Cam McGrone is not that, and he has the potential to be more. I would not be surprised, say the Giants take him, they either rotate him a bit with Tay Crowder to start it off, or maybe they just take a full-on dive into McGrone and say, you got the second job. With the 107th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Ronnie Perkins, edge, Oklahoma. So I'm going to keep it real with y'all. I really struggled where to go with this particular pick for this mock. I was really deciding between this guy, Ronnie Perkins, or any edge that I think would be available here and would be a good value pick, and another wide receiver, because I do think there's a strong chance that the Giants double dip at wide receiver in the draft, and of course that's completely going to be determined by whether or not we sign one or more wide receivers in free agency. But for the sake of this video, and once again, like I said millions of times, it's the first mock, I had some fun with it, and I'm like, let me try and knock out as many positions of need as I can. So Ronnie Perkins out of Oklahoma, he is a perfect guy for this New York Giants defense, because once again, kind of like Cam McGrone, the versatility. He's somebody that could play both standing upright as an outside linebacker and that could play in the 5 technique on the defensive line. He stands at 6'3", 247 pounds, and the weight, by the way, I just want to put out there, kind of hard to find a legitimate consensus on. Some websites are saying 247, some are saying 248. I've seen some saying 250. He's a big dude. Like, so if he was to play a stand-up outside linebacker, which once again he can, he'd be a big power outside linebacker, kind of a bull rusher, and that shows when he gets into his pass rushing technique. Now, real quick, he did finish out this 2020 season at Oklahoma with 16 tackles, 5.5 sacks. Some of you might look at that and say not too impressive. Well, he is being taken in the 4th round, but I can see the potential here, and that's kind of going to be the talk of the town for the 4th round and beyond with any draft pick. Perkins in particular is all about the explosiveness off the edge and hitting those linemen with his power. He's a dude that loves to impose his will onto the offensive lineman. He loves to force them into their backfield. That's what his name of the game is all about. That first strong hand, in which he does, by the way, have, pretty lengthy arms in my opinion. From that first burst, just converting that into the power and pushing these guys back. That's his main move. He's all about pulling, ripping, pushing. And the thing is, it's been pretty good throughout his college years. He's also really aggressive in the run game. That's not to say that he's necessarily great in the run game. He's just not afraid to get into the backfield or not afraid to try and track down where the running back is and try and tackle them. And this dude's been double teamed, quite a bit over there at Oklahoma. Like, they've used him in stunts. His lateral quickness is just good enough even for stunts. He takes on double teams well. There's a lot of good when you look at Ronnie Perkins. He's a guy that really could develop as a great pass rusher that's also really good in the run defense. Of course, once again, 4th round, he only has that power move. He needs to develop something else at the NFL level because that one move is not going to cut it. He definitely needs to come up with something else to try and get to the quarterback. And he definitely needs to learn how to be a bit more flexible. He's a little bit stiff at times. You're going to need to be flexible at your hips and a little bit more fluid at the NFL level. With the 172nd pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Cedarius Hutcherson, inside offensive lineman, South Carolina. And the Giants finally start to look at that offensive line depth that we need to look at this offseason. I think it's one of the more extremely underrated parts of the team that a lot of people, a lot of fans are forgetting about. A lot of people think we already fixed the offensive line. No, we are on our way to doing that, right? But it's not completely fixed yet, and a lot of people are forgetting we don't need just starters, which, that's still trying to be figured out in terms of the guard position, but we need depth as well. Like, we're going to need to re-sign Cam Fleming or get somebody similar to him when it's in the draft or free agency, and with the guard position, we're going to need to get some backups, and that's where Hutcherson comes in. The reason I listed him as an inside offensive lineman is because he played both guard and center at South Carolina, so he's a bit versatile. You could switch him, put him wherever you need him to be. I think that would be perfect for a backup offensive lineman. If anybody goes down, he could slide in basically at any part of that, offensive line, as long as it's in the interior. Hutcherson was a very fun guy to look at because a lot of these, a lot of the websites I use, like Walter Football, Draft Network, PFN, PFF, and, just going on YouTube and looking at him and stuff, a lot of them have kind of a consensus that he's going to go in the rounds 4 to 6 as of right now. But I think there was like one website that for some reason fell in love with this dude and thought he was starter quality and was going to go in like the 3rd round. That's not what you're getting here, and that's fine. This is a 6th round player. Let me tell you about him. He's a big boy. He stands at 6'4", 320 pounds, and with that alone, his raw power is obvious. And kind of similar to Ronnie Perkins, who we took in the 5th, this guy relies a lot on that raw power. He has a little bit of refinement to do with his technique, but he has a strong, compact body that allows him to be a firm anchor on the interior. He always plays with a good pad level, and that allows him to sometimes match up with some defenders, either match their strength or even push them back a little bit. Not all the time, but generally some of the time. He's okay in run blocking, but he definitely is inconsistent in pass blocking, and that's what, that's why we're talking 6th round players here. That's what, if he comes to the Giants, they're going to need to work on. They're going to need to teach this guy how to be less reliant on the players around him and how to just use his body and be a dog and be a good offensive lineman. He's definitely going to require a little bit of time, especially with his hand placement, but it's doable, and we need the depth. I will say one other player I was looking at around this round here would be Alec Lindstrom, the center out of Boston College. If he's available, he's also somebody that the Giants could take. With the 176th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Abraham Lucas, offensive tackle, Washington State. Now this right here is going to be kind of weird because I'm more excited about this 6th round pick, which is also the last pick in the entire draft, than I was about the last one in Hutcherson. Because I really think that Abraham Lucas is probably one of the more underrated players of this draft class. And by the time March and April comes around, he may not go into 6th. He may be up there around the 4th or 3rd round. Hopefully teams continue to overlook him though. He is just a great value down here in the later rounds of the draft. And before I get into it, I'm just going to say, he kind of reminds me of Matt Peart of last year's draft in terms of size and how he uses his size. You know what I'm saying? Matt Peart was also, somebody that I mocked the Giants last year and they did end up taking him. I would not be mad if that's the case with Abraham Lucas. He stands at 6'7", 324 pounds, an absolute monster out there. Played right tackle at the college level for Washington State, and he was a pretty strong right tackle from what I saw. In fact, there were a couple examples, and with this guy you really have to look at his 2019 stuff just because of the nature of the 2020 season. Definitely his best tape is in 2019, but there were a couple times where he was straight up manhandling dudes. At his size, he got a pretty good base. I mean, when he anchors, you're not moving him, and if he is moving, he has pretty smooth feet. He just knows how to carry himself and how to use his length. And he's really good in pass protection, man. Like, rarely will you ever see him just completely beaten off the edge. He holds his own pretty well. Although I will say some of that could be due to the scheme that he played in college. He played an air raid offense, which means getting to the quarterback from the right side, at least in his particular scheme, it's a bit more difficult. But hey, he held his own really, really well against most competition. And now you might be saying, well, if he's this good, why is he going into 6th? It's because he's a developmental guy, just like Matt Peart was. This guy has a lot of room left to grow and a lot of room left to be developed. I said that he moves well, but he also needs to be quicker off the snap of the football. He never gets beaten off the edge. He can be taken advantage of from the inside. He knows how to use his length and arms, but he needs to put a bit more power behind his punches. Where there's something really good about him, there is also a little bit of a drawback, but I think it's all fixable, and I really, really like him. Keep your eye on him, man. Definitely keep your eye on him. And that is it. That concludes the very first mock draft of the 2021 season for the New York Giants, man. Let me know what you guys think. The way too early edition, because you already know why. Put your thoughts and comments down below. What do you think about the positions I attacked, the players that I took? Where do you want to see, a little bit more improvement, all that? Put it all down there, man. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you thought about the editing and animations, because this would not have been done without my guy Farhan. You guys already know him. He helped me make the merch. He helped me make, my intros and whatnot. The video looks that good because he was working on this video with me. So y'all better like this mock-up, share it everywhere, and drop that subscribe button. I'm out.